Hello again. Over the last few times, you will have heard me speak about hearing, seeing, feeling from spirit. All my life, I've been passing messages on to people from the spirit world for well over 50 years now. Oh, that does seem like a long time. You know, I first worked on stage passing messages on to people when I was 15 years of age. And in those days, I'd come home from wherever I was and my mother would say, "How did it go?" Well, I'd say, "I think it went okay. Passed quite a few messages on." But, they're all old people in the audience, lots of old people. And recently, in recent years, I've come home from wherever I've been, and my wife will say to me, "How did it go?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I think it went okay, passed a few messages on." But there's a lot of young people in the audience. And then I realised the age of the audience hasn't changed. I have. I've just got older. I've passed many, many messages on from those in spirit. But one in particular I'd like to tell you about stands out. And I don't know what you think about this, but I'll give you my thoughts afterwards. I was on stage in a sort of, not like a theatre, it was more like a cabaret club type of atmosphere with tables, with people drinking. It was interesting, it was a nice evening, hundreds of people there. And I went to this lady, and I went to this gentleman, and I went to a few people passing messages on. But I went to a table where I saw about 5, 6, 7 young ladies all having a glass of wine, enjoying their evening, I hope. And I said, "I want to talk to that young lady there with the blonde hair." She looked about, as near as I could say, 23 to 25 kind of age group. Very attractive, very bubbly, got a glass of wine in her hand. And I said to her, "I want to come to you because what I'm seeing is," and I stopped. I walked to my table that I always have on stage and took a glass of water while I had a little think. Because sometimes it's not just about passing messages on, but how you pass the message on. And I wasn't too sure what to say about this one. Until in the end I thought, well, here goes. I said to the young lady, and she stood up and smiled, and I said, "I can see that you haven't got long to live." Well, you can imagine the whole room fell silent. She sort of smiled, and a tear came down her cheek. And I thought to myself, what have I just said? And she said in a very good, loud voice, "Thank you, Mr. Drew. Thank you so much." I said, "I have just told you you haven't got long to live. Why are you thanking me?" Her reply was, "I know I haven't got long to live. And if you'd have told me anything else or anything about my future, I would not have believed in you. Now I know that you're genuine. I know that I can believe in you, and I feel so much better. Thank you very much. Now I know I have nothing to fear. I don't know, over the 50-something years of working, how many people I've spoken to, but it must run into the hundreds of thousands. And of course, I don't very often remember what I've said to people. But of course, that one stood out. I could tell you a few more, but what I want to say today is that I believe everyone is psychic to a degree. Has it ever happened to you? Maybe you've just come home from work, you sit in your favourite armchair, relaxing. Oh, that's good. And you think, oh, I thought I saw someone then in that doorway, but I've just turned and looked and there's no one there. I must have imagined it. No, you didn't imagine it at all. Where you made the mistake, and remember this when it happens, is you turned and looked. Before I go on stage, I'm always very, very nervous, even after all these years. But I have to spend 5 minutes before I go on, alone, quiet, getting myself into the right frame of mind. You know, sometimes you're, daydreaming. Someone might come up behind you and you jump and say, oh, sorry, I was miles away. You weren't asleep, but you weren't completely aware of your surroundings. That is the mode that you have to get into for you to see, hear and feel spirit comfortably, clearly. So next time you're sat in your favourite armchair relaxing, if that ever happens, that you feel that you see something, hear something, feel something, just carry on relaxing. Don't be startled and don't sort of come to, because that's the way it will build up. We all of us have a earthly body and a spirit body, physical body and a spirit body. Of course, when your time on this earth is up and your earthly body is disposed of, your spirit lives on. Now, your spirit, that is the real you, lives on forever. And in spirit, you will still see, you will hear, you will feel. And so what I'm trying to say is, if you could use your spirit body instead of your physical body to see, hear and feel, then that is being psychic and using your psychic abilities. By the way, thank you very much for all your emails, messages, questions. I am trying my best to keep up with answering them all, and I will do one day, maybe. But I am receiving 80, 100, sometimes more emails, messages a week. And it does take time for me to get through them. But someone was asking me about spirit guides. One lady from Wigan wrote to me and said she thought her grandfather was her spirit guide. Now, I'm sure her grandfather was a lovely man, and he intends to help her and advise her as best he can from where he is. But I'm afraid I have to say to you, no, he is not your spirit guide. Spirit guides are well developed spiritually. They've been in spirit perhaps hundreds of years. They've had perhaps many earthly lives. They are at least plane number 6 or usually 7 before they can become a spirit guide. And your spirit guide is with you all the time, from before you were born until well after you pass over. Those of you who have read my books will be familiar with Blue Cloud, my spirit guide. He has been with me for a very long time. Now, what spirit guides do, they can't make you do anything, but they do try to help you, they try to advise you, they try to direct you, and you can send your thoughts out to them. I chat very often to Blue Cloud about various things, and he's very wise, very knowledgeable. For instance, he says things like, only speak if you have something to say. That's interesting when you think about it. You know, sometimes maybe a group of you go out after work for a drink and chatting away. Sometimes there's one that dominates the conversation and talks loud. And if you asked afterwards, what did she have to say? What was she going on about? I bet your answer is, I haven't got a clue really, I wasn't listening. But if there's one in your group that's always very quiet, very rarely speaks, and then one day she says something, have you noticed how then everyone else goes quiet and they listen to what she has to say? Because she doesn't speak very often. When she does, it's usually something very significant. When you pass over to spirit, and you will, don't be frightened by this, but it is very different for different people, sometimes depending on how you've lived your earthly life or what you've believed in even, or if you're very ill, or if it's a very sudden death. There's different circumstances that take you over to spirit, and then you may find yourself in different surroundings. Some people who say, oh, I don't believe in anything like life after death or anything like that. When you're dead, you're dead. If that's what you've always believed in, it can well be that when you pass over, there's nothing. You won't see anything, hear anything, feel anything. And then at first you think, see, I told you, there's nothing. But hang on a minute. I'm thinking. Therefore, I'm still existing. Therefore, I am. What's all this about? And it could take a long time, earthly time, for you to try to work things out. Well, if I'm still thinking, then I'm still existing. If I'm still existing, other people must be existing. And slowly, sometimes it's like a fog lifting, a mist around you that's clearing. And then you will start to see other people and be greeted by other people. Of course, if you've always believed in a life after death and that you will meet up with people when you pass over, that's exactly what will happen. Life is eternal. I'd like to think over the past 50 or so years, I've proved this time and time again by passing messages on from people in the spirit world to people here on the earth. Sometimes the messages may seem very simple, but you know, there's a lot of mediums. I'm going to upset a few people now, I'm sure, because sometimes, in fact very often, people contact me and say, can you recommend a good medium in my area? I never recommend any medium to anyone. What I usually do say is go by reputation. If someone says to you, I went to see this medium and they were very good, then give that a try. Remember also what I say. I will have nothing to do with tarot cards, crystal balls, runes. Some people read all sorts of things. I don't go along with this at all. For many years, I used to run a psychic development class. And one lady came along and sat for a while. And then we didn't see her after that. I often wondered what happened to her. But I did find out. She'd been somewhere and bought a book on how to read the tarot cards, bought a pack of tarot cards, started advertising telephone readings, telephone tarot readings. You could phone up and have a reading of the tarot cards, and if you weren't happy with it, it's not a problem. You could phone again the next day and get a different reading. I don't go along with that. If you are truly psychic, then you don't need props like tarot cards or crystal balls or anything else. Just sit and look at people. Put yourself into that mode. You know when your son or daughter may call in to see you, hello mum, how are you? Try to be, practice for this. Try to be as relaxed as you possibly can. Take a deep breath, smile. Don't listen to what they have to say, but rather what they don't have to say. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but you know, sometimes you may either get a phone call from your daughter, or your daughter walks in the back door and says, hiya. Straight away you know you're pregnant, aren't you? How did you know that? How many times does this happen? You see, everyone's psychic. Sometimes you can come out with things not knowing what you're saying, or only occasionally, but it's proof time and time again. The physical body that you see before you is only an instrument. It's only what you need whilst you're on the earth plane. It's rather like your old overcoat that you dispense with. When you pass over to spirit, you think, oh, I'm free of that vessel that I've been walking around in for all these years. The earthly life is very, very important, because before I finish this time, I just want to say to you, it very much depends on how you live your earthly life as to where you will find yourself in the next life. Be nice to people. Be good to people. Be unselfish. Give of yourself. We'll chat again sometime. Keep those messages coming. Keep those questions coming. It sometimes gives me inspiration as to what to talk about next. I look forward to hearing from you. Take care.